The year was 2157. Humanity had spread across the solar system, building colonies on Mars, Europa, and Titan. They had developed faster than light travel only 15 years ago and had just begun to explore nearby star systems. The discovery of the alien coalition known as the Hegemony changed everything. Ambassador John Miller adjusted his formal diplomatic uniform as the Earth shuttle approached the massive space station orbiting Nexus Prime. Through the viewport, he could see hundreds of alien ships moving in precise patterns around the station. Each one was at least 3 times larger than the biggest human vessel. "Nervous?" asked Olivia Wright, his assistant and the mission's cultural specialist. John nodded slightly. "This is everything we've worked for. First contact with an advanced civilization. I just hope they're willing to talk." The Earth delegation consisted of 12 people, diplomats, scientists, and 2 military observers, who were there only because the Security Council had insisted. Lieutenant Commander Kate Porter was one of them. She sat quietly at the back of the shuttle, her eyes constantly scanning the alien vessels, making mental notes of their design and capabilities. "Their technology is at least 2 centuries ahead of ours," whispered Dr. Alan Brooks, the chief scientist. "Look at the energy readings from those ships." Kate nodded but said nothing. Her job wasn't to be impressed. It was to assess potential threats. The shuttle docked with a soft thud. A mechanical voice spoke in perfect English. "Earth delegation, you may disembark. Follow the illuminated path to the council chamber." John led his team through gleaming corridors made of materials none of them had ever seen. The walls seemed to shift colors subtly as they walked. Aliens of various species moved past them, some floating, others walking on multiple legs, and a few that seemed to glide along the floor. None of them paid much attention to the humans. After 20 minutes of walking, they reached an enormous circular room. 7 different alien species were seated on raised platforms arranged in a semicircle. In the center was a small lower platform clearly meant for the humans. "That's deliberate," Kate whispered to John. "They've positioned us lower than everyone else." John nodded. "Noted." A tall, slender alien with iridescent blue skin and 4 arms stood. When it spoke, a translation device on John's collar converted the sounds into English. "The Eternal Hegemony acknowledges the presence of the Earth delegation. I am Supreme Counselor Zalvor. State your purpose before the Council." John stepped forward. "Supreme Counselor and honored representatives of the Hegemony, I am Ambassador John Miller of Earth. We come seeking peaceful relations, cultural exchange, and to establish fair trade routes between our peoples." A rumbling sound came from one of the other aliens, a massive reptilian creature with armored skin. The translation device identified it as laughter. "The primitive species wishes to establish fair trade routes," said the reptilian alien. "As if they have anything of value to offer the hegemony." John maintained his composure. "And you are?" "I am High General Krasnar of the Vrazik's Dominion. My people handle military matters for the hegemony." Zalvor raised one of his 4 hands. "Let us proceed with formalities. Earth has recently developed rudimentary faster-than-light travel and has colonized a few worlds in their home system. They seek recognition and trade agreements." Another alien, this one resembling a giant insect with compound eyes, spoke next. "Their technology is primitive but shows potential. Their biology is interesting, adaptable, but fragile. Short-lived species," John cleared his throat. "While we appreciate the assessment, we're here to discuss terms as equals. Earth has resources, innovations, and cultural artifacts that may be of interest to the hegemony." This caused more rumbling laughter from several of the alien representatives. Zalvor's expression was unreadable. "Here are the terms the hegemony offers. Earth may continue its development within its home system. You will provide the hegemony with access to your mineral resources, particularly the element you call uranium. In exchange, we will not interfere with your civilization's development." John blinked in surprise. "That's not a trade agreement. That's barely even recognition of our sovereignty." "It is generous," said Krasnar. "Many species are simply absorbed when discovered. While this exchange took place, Kate Porter was carefully studying the chamber. She noticed how the Vraziks delegates kept looking at each other whenever resources were mentioned. She also spotted what appeared to be military schematics on a datapad one of them was holding, showing what looked like deployment patterns near human space. John tried again. We propose fair exchange of resources, with Earth maintaining control over its territories. We offer cultural exchange programs and scientific collaboration. Salvor made a dismissive gesture with his lower arms. Your proposal is denied. The terms offered are the only terms available to a species at your development stage. For 2 hours, John attempted to negotiate better conditions. Each proposal was either laughed at or immediately rejected. The aliens spoke among themselves, in their own languages, often not bothering to wait for translations before responding to each other. Finally, Salvor stood again. This audience is concluded. The Earth delegation will receive formal documentation of the terms offered. You have 30 Earth days to accept. John stood his ground. And if we decline these terms? The reptilian Krasnar leaned forward. Then, the hegemony will reconsider whether Earth requires its own independent government at all. As the Earth delegation was escorted out, Salvor called after them, Your species is barely out of its evolutionary infancy. You should be grateful we even granted you an audience. Back on the shuttle, the team sat in stunned silence for several minutes. They're planning something, Kate finally said. The Vraziks were reviewing military deployments near our territory. John nodded grimly. They don't see us as equals, barely even as sentient. Olivia looked up from her notes. They've done this before. Did you notice how practiced it all seemed? This isn't their first time dealing with a new species. Dr. Brooks was still in shock. Their technology is incredible. If they decided to move against us, we wouldn't stand a chance. Don't be so sure, Kate said quietly. They're overconfident. They've dismissed us completely. And that's their first mistake. John looked out the viewport at the massive alien station growing smaller as they departed. We need to warn Earth. The hegemony isn't interested in peaceful coexistence. They want submission or conquest. As the shuttle entered FTL travel, John made a decision. When we get back, I'm recommending we accelerate all defense programs immediately. The hegemony has shown us exactly what they think of humanity. He looked at each member of his team. They think we're weak, primitive, easily controlled. They've underestimated us, and that might be the only advantage we have. 6 months passed since the failed diplomatic mission. Earth's government had been quietly preparing for the worst while still hoping for peace. New defense systems were being built throughout the solar system. Military production had increased by 300%. Yet publicly, Earth maintained that negotiations with the hegemony were ongoing. The research vessel EAS Discovery drifted near the edge of human territory. Captain William Hayes stood on the bridge, looking at the unusual energy readings on the main screen. What do you make of it, Doctor? He asked. Dr. Laura Chen shook her head. Nothing natural produces energy patterns like these. It's definitely artificial. Captain Hayes turned to his navigator. How far to the source? About 2 hours at standard speed, sir. Hayes nodded. Take us there, but maintain sensor sweep. If anything looks wrong, we pull back immediately. The Discovery was primarily a research vessel, but recent events had led to all human ships being equipped with basic defensive capabilities. It carried a crew of 347 scientists, engineers, and a small security team. Communications Officer Daniel Garcia was monitoring channels when he picked up something strange. Captain, I'm detecting communications in a non-human language. Running. It threw the translator now. After a minute, broken phrases began coming through the speakers. Extraction proceeding. Quota will be met. No sign of human presence. Captain Hayes frowned. That asteroid belt is within our claimed territory according to the maps we shared with the hegemony. The Discovery approached cautiously, staying behind a large asteroid, for cover. What they saw made everyone on the bridge fall silent. 3 massive alien ships were systematically breaking apart asteroids, extracting materials and processing them on site. Hegemony ships, said Security Chief Maria Johnson. Vrazik's design, based on the briefings from the diplomatic mission. Hayes straightened his uniform. Open a channel, Garcia nodded. Channel open, sir. Attention Hegemony vessels. This is Captain William Hayes of the Earth Alliance Ship Discovery. You are currently operating within Earth-claimed territory. Please state your purpose and authorization. For several moments, there was only silence. Then a harsh voice responded. Human vessel detected. Containment protocols activated. Before anyone could react, the 3 alien ships turned with surprising speed. Bright energy beams shot out from their weapon systems. Evasive maneuvers, Hayes shouted, but it was too late. The first blast hit the Discovery's engines, crippling the ship. The second tore through the middle sections where most of the crew quarters were located. All personnel to escape pods, Hayes ordered as the bridge filled with smoke. Garcia, send all our sensor data back to Earth Command. Garcia worked frantically at his console. Transmitting now, sir? The ship rocked with another hit. Warning sirens blared throughout the vessel. Hull breach on decks 3 through 7, reported the computer in its calm voice. Life support failing. Chief Johnson looked at the tactical display. They're positioning for a killing blow, sir. Hayes hit the ship-wide communication. All hands abandon ship. This is not a drill. Get to escape pods now. Garcia finished the transmission and looked up. Data sent, sir. Get to an escape pod, Garcia. That's an order, Hayes said firmly. What about you, sir? I'll be right behind you. Someone needs to make sure that data gets to Earth. As Garcia reluctantly left the bridge, Hayes turned to the few remaining officers. It's been an honor serving with you all. The Hegemony ships fired again. The Discovery broke apart in a massive explosion, briefly lighting up the darkness of space. Daniel Garcia's escape pod was the only one that launched in time. He watched in horror as his ship and all his crewmates were destroyed. The Hegemony vessels began scanning for survivors. Garcia shut down all non-essential systems in the small pod, drifting among the asteroid debris. His pod's limited AI spoke quietly. Emergency beacon activated on secure Earth frequency. Estimated time until rescue, 72 hours. Garcia stared out the small viewport, tears floating in the zero gravity. They didn't even warn us. They just opened fire. Back on Earth, the United Earth government had called an emergency session. Admiral Patricia Reeves stood before the assembled representatives, her face grim. The Discovery has been destroyed with nearly all hands lost, she said. We have only one survivor, communications officer Daniel Garcia, who managed to transmit sensor data before escaping. President Samantha Powell leaned forward. What were they doing in our territory? Mining operations, Madam President. But there's more. Admiral Reeves activated a display showing intercepted Hegemony communications. Our intelligence teams have been monitoring Hegemony channels since the diplomatic mission. What they've found is disturbing. The display showed translated messages between Hegemony ships and their command. Human expansion to be contained through strategic resource denial. Territorial violations authorized to assess human response capabilities. Primitive species require demonstration of power to understand their place. Any resistance to be met with immediate elimination. Admiral Reeves continued. These communications make it clear this wasn't an accident or misunderstanding. The attack on the Discovery was planned. The Hegemony has been systematically undermining our expansion efforts while pretending to negotiate. Another message appeared on screen. Humans are temporary nuisances who will be properly contained once their resources are secured. The chamber erupted in angry shouts and questions. President Powell raised her hand for silence. Show me the final transmission from the Discovery, she said quietly. Admiral Reeves hesitated. Madam President, it's difficult to watch. Show it. The large screen displayed the bridge of the Discovery. Captain Hayes could be seen giving orders as the ship was hit. The fear and determination on the faces of the crew were clear. The transmission ended with a flash of light as the ship was destroyed. The room was silent. President Powell stood slowly, her face hard with resolve. "The hegemony believes we are weak," she said. "They believe we can be bullied, pushed aside, or eliminated entirely if we resist. They have gravely miscalculated." She looked around the chamber at the representatives of Earth and its colonies. "Prepare a formal declaration of war against the hegemony. They dismissed us. They underestimated us. Now they will learn exactly what humanity is capable of when threatened." As the emergency session ended, Admiral Reeves approached the President. "Madam President, the hegemony forces vastly outnumber ours. Their technology is more advanced." President Powell nodded. "I'm aware of the odds, Admiral." "Then you know this won't be easy." President Powell looked at the frozen image of the Discovery's final moments. "No war ever is, Admiral, but they should have studied our history more carefully. Throughout human history, we have faced overwhelming odds again and again. And we have survived. We endure. We fight back." She turned to face Admiral Reeves directly. "Activate all the defense programs we've been developing. It's time to show the hegemony who they're really dealing with." The Hegemony Council received Earth's declaration of war with a mixture of amusement and irritation. High General Krasnar of the Vraziks stood before the gathered representatives, his scaled skin reflecting the light as he gestured dismissively. "The primates wish to challenge us," he said, causing ripples of laughter among the council members. "This will be resolved before their next seasonal cycle." Supreme Counselor Zalvor raised one of his four hands. "Is a military response truly necessary? Perhaps we should simply blockade their system until they reconsider." Krasnar shook his massive head. "Humans are aggressive and unpredictable. Our studies of their history show they respond only to force. A swift demonstration of our power will end this quickly." "Very well," Zalvor agreed. "Prepare a punitive fleet. Keep civilian casualties minimal. We still want their resources intact." Krasnar bowed. "I will lead the fleet personally. 20 of our medium warships should be more than sufficient to handle their primitive defenses." Meanwhile, on Earth, the United Earth Government had enacted its war plans with surprising speed. General Frank Martinez stood in the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, addressing the combined military leadership. "For the past 6 months since our first contact with the hegemony, we've been preparing for this possibility," he said. "Operation Hidden Shield is now active." He activated a holographic display showing the solar system. Dozens of small symbols appeared throughout the display. "These are our secret military installations and shipyards that we kept hidden from all hegemony scans. We've been building ships and weapons based on what we learned from our brief access to their technology." Admiral Nathan Carter stepped forward. "The Earth Defense Fleet currently consists of 217 combat-ready vessels. The hegemony believes we have only 35 ships, mostly converted civilian craft." Dr. Linda Collins, head of the Advanced Weapons Division, activated another display. "We've developed several technologies that should surprise them. Our electronic warfare systems have been specially designed to interfere with hegemony communications. And thanks to Lieutenant Commander Porter's intelligence from the diplomatic mission, we've identified potential weaknesses in their shield configurations." General Martinez nodded. "Make no mistake, we are still technologically outmatched. But we have advantages they don't know about, and we'll be fighting on our home territory." 3 days later, hegemony sensors detected the approach of Krasnar's punitive fleet. 20 massive warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Saturn, their weapon systems already charging. "Scan for human defenses," ordered Krasnar from the command ship. "Detecting approximately 30 human vessels near their inner planets," reported his sensor officer. "Primitive designs, minimal shielding." Krasnar made a sound of satisfaction. "Even easier than expected. Proceed to Earth at attack speed." As the hegemony fleet passed Saturn, they failed to notice the small sensor buoys hidden among the planet's rings. In the command center on Earth, Admiral Carter watched the enemy fleet's approach. "They've taken the bait," he said. "All ships, move to positions. Operation Hornet's Nest is go." Suddenly, from hiding places throughout Saturn's rings, 60 human vessels emerged, moving in a complex formation that the hegemony had never seen before. Instead of forming a defensive line, the Earth ships split into smaller groups, approaching the hegemony fleet from multiple vectors. "What is this?" Krasnar demanded as alerts sounded on his bridge. Where did these ships come from? Before his officers could respond, the human vessels opened fire. Their weapons weren't as powerful as the hegemonies, but they fired in synchronized patterns, concentrating on specific points of the alien shields. "Shields holding at 87%, reported a Vrazik's officer. "Minor damage only." Krasnar laughed. "Is this the best they can do? Return fire and eliminate them." The hegemony ships fired their main weapons, but the human vessels executed a series of rapid maneuvers, using Saturn's gravity to slingshot at unexpected angles. Several shots missed entirely. "Their movements make no sense," complained the tactical officer. "They're not following any standard combat doctrine." Meanwhile, on the Earth ship EAS Defiant, Lieutenant Commander Ryan Pierce watched as the data from the first weapon impacts came in. "Just as we thought," he said to Captain Steve Rogers. "Their shields resonate at predictable frequencies. Permission to reconfigure our magnetic resonance cannons?" "Do it," ordered Rogers. Pierce's fingers flew over his console. "All ships adjust your MRC frequencies to 327.5 MHz. Fire on my mark." When the human ships fired again, something unexpected happened. The beams seemed to slip through the hegemony shields as if they weren't there, striking the hulls directly. On Krasnar's flagship, alarms blared. "Shield failure on decks 7 through 12. How is this possible?" "They've somehow matched the resonant frequency of our shield matrix," said his science officer in disbelief. "This technology shouldn't be possible for them," Krasnar roared. In anger, "Adjust shield frequencies. Return fire at full power." 3 human ships exploded under the hegemony's powerful weapons, but the rest continued their attack, constantly shifting positions and adjusting their tactics. When the hegemony adapted to one approach, the humans would switch to another. "Formation Delta," called Admiral Carter from the command vessel. "Spring the trap." From the dark side of Titan, another 100 human ships appeared, smaller and faster than the first group. They swarmed the hegemony vessels like angry insects, targeting engines and weapon systems with precision strikes. Krasnar watched in growing horror as his tactical display showed 5, then 10, then 15 of his ships suffering critical damage. This was impossible. Humans were primitive. They were supposed to be easy to defeat. "We need to retreat and regroup," advised his second-in-command. "Retreat? From humans?" Krasnar snarled. "Never." But as his own flagship rocked with multiple impacts, he finally gave the order. "All ships, emergency withdrawal, return to hegemony space." Only 7 of the 20 hegemony ships managed to escape. The rest were either destroyed or disabled and captured by Earth forces. In the aftermath, Admiral Carter stood among the cheering personnel in Earth's command center. "We've won the first battle," he said, quieting the celebration. "But this is just the beginning. The hegemony will be back and in greater numbers." General Martinez nodded grimly. "But we've gained something precious, time. And we've shown them that humanity won't be an easy conquest." Across the solar system, news of the victory spread rapidly. For the first time since contact with the alien coalition, people felt hope. On the captured hegemony flagship, Earth scientists and engineers were already studying the advanced technology, learning and adapting it for human use. And far away, in the hegemony council chambers, Supreme Counselor Zalvor received the news of Krasnar's defeat with stunned disbelief. "How is this possible?" he asked the messenger. "They are barely out of their planetary system." "We don't know," admitted the messenger. "But the humans are not what we thought they were. They fight differently." Zalvor stared at the tactical report. For the first time in centuries, he felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. "Prepare the main battle fleet," he ordered. "This will require our full attention." 2 months after the Battle of Saturn's Rings, the Hegemony Council gathered in an emergency session. The normally orderly proceedings had given way to heated arguments and accusations. Supreme Counselor Zalvor struggled to maintain order as representatives from the 7 species shouted over each other. "Silence! Zalvor finally commanded, his forearms raised. This disorganization is exactly what the humans want. We must respond with unity and strength. High General Krasnar, demoted after his defeat but still powerful within the Vrazik's military, stepped forward. I underestimated the humans. It will not happen again. Our main battle fleet is prepared to crush this rebellion completely. Zalvor nodded. The full might of the hegemony will be deployed. We have ruled this sector for 10,000 years. We will not be challenged by creatures who only recently learned to leave their own planet. Meanwhile, in the hidden command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, Colonel Elizabeth Chambers addressed the United Earth Government's War Council. Project Phoenix is now fully operational, she announced, activating a holographic display that showed the solar system. Scattered throughout the display were blinking lights representing hidden facilities. We've been building these shipyards since first contact. The hegemony believes our fleet numbers in the hundreds. In reality, we have over 3,000 vessels. President Powell looked impressed but concerned. Can they stand against hegemony technology? They're not as advanced, admitted Colonel Chambers, but we're learning quickly. The ships we captured in the first battle have provided valuable insights. Dr. Collins has already reverse-engineered several key technologies. Admiral Carter stepped forward. We're not trying to match them ship for ship. Our strategy relies on human adaptability and unconventional tactics. And what about allies? Asked President Powell. Are we alone in this fight? General Martinez cleared his throat. Not anymore. After our victory, we've been contacted by several species who have suffered under hegemony rule. They were too afraid to rebel before, but now they see hope. He activated another display showing two alien species, one resembling tall, slender, humanoids with silver skin, and another looking like massive jellyfish floating in transparent environmental suits. The Rathi, he pointed to the silver humanoids, are technologically advanced but pacifistic. The hegemony forced them into creating weapons. They're willing to provide intelligence on hegemony supply lines and technological weaknesses. And the Korvax, he indicated the jellyfish-like beings, are a nomadic species with superior knowledge of wormhole navigation. They can help our ships move undetected through hegemony space. 2 weeks later, a massive hegemony fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system. 500 warships, each one larger and more powerful than the vessels in the first attack. They moved with careful precision, clearly expecting another ambush. Admiral Carter watched their approach from the bridge of the EAS Determination, Earth's newest flagship. They've learned from their mistakes. They're moving in tight formation, shields overlapping. Tactical Officer Sophia Johnson nodded. The standard approach won't work this time. Permission to implement Operation Scattered Stars? Granted, said Carter. All ships prepare for quantum dispersion. The Earth fleet, which had been gathered near Mars, suddenly split apart. Instead of forming battle groups, each ship activated a new device developed by Dr. Collins. The quantum entanglement generators allowed Earth vessels to coordinate perfectly without using detectable communications. From the hegemony flagship, Supreme Commander Zolrath watched in confusion as the human fleet seemed to dissolve into chaos. What are they doing? This makes no tactical sense. His sensor officer looked equally perplexed. They've broken into hundreds of small units, 1 or 2 ships each. They're spreading throughout the system in random patterns. Zolrath frowned. It's a trick. Maintain formation and proceed to Earth. Once we control their homeworld, the rest will surrender. But as the hegemony fleet moved inward, they found themselves under attack from all directions. Small groups of human ships would appear, strike from unexpected angles, then disappear again. The quantum entanglement allowed these scattered forces to coordinate with perfect timing, focusing fire on key targets before dispersing again. I can't track their movements, reported the hegemony tactical officer. They seem to know our responses before we make them. Zolrath slammed his fist on his command console. How are they communicating? Jam all frequencies. We are jamming everything, said his communications officer. But they don't seem to be using any communications technology we recognize. On the EAS Determination, Admiral Carter watched the Battle unfold according to plan. Begin Phase 2. Bring in the Korvax navigators. Suddenly, small wormholes began opening throughout the battlefield. Earth ships would disappear into one and emerge from another, bypassing hegemony defenses entirely. The Rothi had provided exact specifications of hegemony shield generators, allowing human weapons to target precisely where the shields were weakest. The battle raged for hours. The hegemony's superior firepower destroyed 70 Earth vessels, but they couldn't adapt to the constantly changing tactics. Human ships would retreat, regroup, then attack in completely different formations. The Allied Korvax provided escape routes when needed, while Rothi technical experts helped Earth forces target critical systems. By the time the Earth forces withdrew to regroup, the hegemony had lost 150 ships, including their flagship. Supreme Commander Zolrath had been captured, along with dozens of high-ranking officers. The Battle of Proxima Centauri, as it came to be known, marked a turning point in the war. News of the hegemony's defeat spread quickly through their territories, encouraging more rebellions on subjugated worlds. In the prison facility where hegemony officers were held, Admiral Carter personally visited Supreme Commander Zolrath. "Why?" asked the alien commander, his proud posture now defeated. "Your species is young. Your technology is primitive compared to ours. How are you defeating us?" Carter considered the question carefully. "You've ruled for so long that you forgot what it's like to fight for survival. Humans have been fighting each other for our entire history. We've never stopped adapting, never stopped finding new ways to overcome stronger enemies." Zolrath looked doubtful. "Your internal conflicts should have weakened you. Instead, they prepared us," said Carter. "When you dismissed us as primitive, you didn't realize that we'd been tempering ourselves through thousands of years of conflict. We learned to think differently, to adapt quickly, to find weaknesses in seemingly unbeatable foes." As Carter left the prison, he received an urgent message. The Hegemony Council had deployed their remaining forces to crush the growing rebellions. The war was spreading across the galaxy. Back on Earth, President Powell addressed the United Nations. "We didn't start this war, but we will finish it. Not through conquest, but by breaking the hegemony's grip on dozens of enslaved species. Humanity will not stand alone. We will fight alongside all who seek freedom." The crowd erupted in cheers, but General Martinez remained solemn. "The real struggle is just beginning," he whispered to Colonel Chambers. "The hegemony still has vast resources. This war could last for years. Then we'll fight for years," she replied. "They should have studied us more carefully before they dismissed us as weak. Humanity has never backed down from a fight when our survival is at stake." 3 years passed since Earth declared war on the hegemony. The conflict had spread across dozens of star systems. What began as a simple punitive action against humans had grown into the largest rebellion the hegemony had faced in its 10,000-year history. Supreme Counselor Zalvor stood alone in his private chamber, looking out at the once mighty capital world of Nexus Prime. The grand city that had symbolized hegemony power for millennia now showed signs of strain. Several buildings were damaged from recent attacks. Defense ships patrolled the skies constantly. An aide entered quietly. "Supreme Counselor, the reports from the Vega sector have arrived." Zalvor didn't turn around. "Let me guess. Another defeat?" "Yes, sir. The combined human and Rothi forces have liberated the mining colonies. That makes 12 major systems lost in the past year alone." Zalvor finally turned. "And the internal situation?" The aide looked down. 3 more member species have formally requested independence from the hegemony. The Zentari fleet has refused orders to engage human forces. There are protests on 17 worlds. Zalvor closed his eyes briefly. The mighty hegemony was crumbling from within and without. The humans had not only proven unexpectedly formidable in battle, but they had also offered all conquered species something the hegemony never had: equality. "Send a message to Earth," he said finally. "Request a peace conference." On Earth, the mood was cautiously optimistic. Despite heavy losses, humanity had not only survived but thrived during the war. Necessity had accelerated technological development by decades. The alliance with former hegemony subjects had brought new knowledge and resources. Secretary of Interstellar Affairs John Miller, formerly Ambassador Miller, sat in the Oval Office with President Powell. They were reviewing the message from Zalvor. "They want peace," said Miller. "After 3 years, they finally understand they can't win." President Powell looked thoughtful. "Do you think it's a trap?" "No. Our intelligence from the Rathi confirms the hegemony is facing internal collapse. Multiple species are in open rebellion. Their economy is strained by the war effort." "They suggest a neutral location for the conference," Powell noted. Miller shook his head. "No. If we're discussing peace, it will be on our terms. Tell them the conference will be held here on Earth." 2 weeks later, a hegemony diplomatic vessel entered Earth's atmosphere under heavy escort. The ship landed in Geneva, where the old United Nations headquarters had been expanded into the new Interstellar Diplomatic Center. Zalvor and a small delegation of high-ranking hegemony officials were escorted into the Grand Conference Room. The Supreme Counselor tried to hide his surprise at what he saw. The room contained representatives not only from Earth but from 20 formerly subjugated species. The Rathi sat alongside humans as equals. The floating Korvax hovered near the ceiling. Even some former hegemony member species were present, having switched sides during the war. Most shocking to Zalvor was the technology on display. Humans were using advanced holographic systems that even the hegemony didn't possess. Guards wore power armor with design elements clearly adapted from captured hegemony technology, but improved upon. Secretary Miller stepped forward to greet the hegemony delegation. "Supreme Counselor Zalvor, welcome to Earth." Zalvor noted the irony. The last time they met, Miller had been kept waiting and then dismissed. Now the human spoke as an equal, or perhaps even as a superior. "The hegemony appreciates your willingness to discuss peace," Zalvor said formally. The negotiations lasted for 7 days. The terms were harsh, but fair. The hegemony would withdraw from 12 contested systems. All species formerly under hegemony, rule would be granted independence if they desired it. The military caste system would be dismantled. Borders would be opened for free trade and cultural exchange. On the final day, as the treaty was prepared for signing, Zalvor requested a private meeting with Secretary Miller. They stood in a garden overlooking Lake Geneva. "Before we conclude this treaty," said Zalvor, "I must understand. How did you do it? How did humans advance so quickly? How did you fight so effectively against forces that had conquered galaxies before your species even existed?" Miller smiled slightly. "Throughout our history, humans have always been at our best when underestimated. We've fought each other for millennia, constantly adapting and evolving our tactics. You dismissed us as primitive because we hadn't conquered our galaxy, never considering that perhaps we were tempering ourselves through internal conflict, preparing for the day we'd face a threat like yours." He gestured toward the conference building. "And unlike the hegemony, we didn't try to rule our allies. We offered partnership, equality, a voice in their own future. You built an empire through fear. We built an alliance through respect." Zalvor was silent for a long moment. "The hegemony has existed for 10,000 years. We forgot what it was like to face a true challenge." He looked directly at Miller. "What happens now? Will humanity become the new hegemony?" "No," Miller said firmly. "The treaty establishes the Galactic Cooperative. All species will have equal representation. Decisions will be made collectively. Even the hegemony species are welcome as equals, not rulers." Later that day, in the Grand Hall filled with representatives from dozens of worlds, the peace treaty was signed. The war that began with the destruction of a single Earth research vessel had ended with the reshaping of galactic civilization. 5 years later, Professor Daniel Garcia, the lone survivor of the EAS discovery, stood before a class of young diplomats at the new Interstellar Academy on Mars. The students represented 20 different species, including reformed hegemony worlds. "The universe's greatest mistake," he told them, "was dismissing humanity as weak because we questioned ourselves and acknowledged our flaws. What they saw as indecision was actually our greatest strength, the capacity to recognize when we're wrong and the courage to change. He looked out at the diverse faces before him. Some had tentacles, others had scales or feathers, but all shared a common purpose. That is the lesson we must carry forward. Not that humanity was stronger or smarter, but that strength comes from cooperation, from respecting differences, and from never becoming so certain of your superiority that you stop adapting. As the class ended, Garcia watched the students file out, the next generation of leaders for a new galactic era. Humanity had been dismissed and underestimated. Then they had declared war. But their greatest victory wasn't winning the conflict. It was creating a lasting peace.